Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about the 5 greatest or biggest triggers that make multiple sclerosis worse. If we haven't met, my name is Pam Bartha. I was diagnosed with MS over 35 years ago, and what I'm going to share with you is truly profound, because if you know these triggers and you are dealing with MS or even other chronic diseases, you are going to be able to avoid the triggers, and it's going to start to help you to feel better very quickly. So maybe you've been diagnosed with MS in the past, or you're dealing with another type of disease, and there are certain days that you find that your symptoms are worse, even when you're following the best diet. Maybe you're taking different supplements, you're trying to exercise, you're trying to do all the right things, but you just can't figure out why some days are worse than other days. Well, I'm going to share with you these really significant triggers, and you're going to understand why they make you worse, and you're going to be able to avoid them, and it's going to really help you in your recovery. Diet is truly the foundation of recovery. It's really, really important, but it isn't enough on its own. Also, the type of diet is really important. There's many different diets. There's low carb, there's high carb, there's vegan, there's vegetarian, there's keto, there's paleo. And if you're not following the right diet, then that's definitely not going to be helping you to have the solid foundation. And so really what's important is to understand where the body is at, what's going on in the body, because then you'll understand what the best diet will be. And so with the research, if you've been following my work, you'll see that I've shared lots and lots of evidence research that multiple sclerosis and all chronic diseases are caused by parasitic infestations in the body. And so what is their favorite food? Their favorite food would be simple carbohydrates, simple sugars, and carbs. So when we have a diet that's really high in those, that is going to feed the parasites and make them worse. So number one, diet is important. I'm not saying it isn't. The right diet is the most important, especially if we're going low carb. There are other things that they're kind of invisible to us because we don't know that they are an issue. So number one is diet. We know that that will decrease the activity of the parasites. So that will help to lower the burden of inflammation and symptoms. But the body is still dealing with the parasites. So it is going to respond to other stressors. Inflammation can be fueled with more than just diet, but inflammation can be made worse with these stressors. So if we want to recover, then we have to remove all these inflammatory inputs. The first trigger is stress. So when we are dealing with a parasitic infestation and we end up having a really stressful event or period, it's usually a period of time, then what happens is that the parasites actually respond to our stress hormones. And this has been shown in science. And so I've done a talk on this. You can go on Google search and look for Live Disease Free, and you will see that I have shared research how parasites respond to not just our sex hormones, but also our stress hormones really significantly. What we've seen in our students is that they might have like this surge of like adrenaline of stress, and their limb goes rigid, their leg or their arm goes rigid. That's how significant it can be. Sometimes it could be a car accident. It could be financial stress. It could be death in the family. It could be division in the family. It could be a breakup of a really important relationship, maybe our marriage, maybe our partner that we've been with for many years. I call them like gut-wrenching emotional stress, or, as I mentioned, the trauma of maybe you're in a physical accident. So all of these, whether they're emotional or whether they're physical things that happen to us, they cause this huge stress, which impacts our stress hormones, which really impacts the parasites very, very quickly. Sometimes the stress is ongoing, and sometimes it comes on suddenly, but it doesn't matter. We just have to understand that we can't avoid stress in life, but what we can do is really work at managing the stress. Higher stress equals more activity of the parasites, equals the production of toxins will be increased, which causes more inflammation, and that causes an increase in our symptoms, in the MS symptoms or whatever you're dealing with. Stress can directly affect inflammation. So that's really, really huge. Number 2 is sleep disruption, when we're sleep deprived. So maybe we're having a hard time falling asleep. Maybe we wake up through the night. So we are definitely sleep deprived, maybe for days, weeks, months. That sleep deprivation makes our immune system a lot weaker. And when our immune system is a lot weaker and we're dealing with parasites, then the parasites can be more active because they don't have our military going after them as they should. So this causes parasites to be more active, then also more toxins produced. They can reproduce more quickly. And then we have more inflammation because our immune system is still trying to deal with it. We can also have immune dysfunction. The immune system is just not going to work as well as it would if we had enough sleep. So sleep is really a time of restoration, of bringing back our energy, of our body restoring itself. And so when we're really deficient in sleep for long periods of time, this really can make our symptoms a lot worse because, again, the parasites can have more activity, more toxins, more inflammation. Our symptoms are worse. Really important to work on sleep. And the problem is when we have parasites, we don't sleep well. We have insomnia very often, not falling asleep or waking up several times throughout the night, whether it's bladder issues or maybe it's just you wake up. And that is caused by the parasites also. So there's this perpetual thing of, the parasites are causing the sleep problems. The sleep problems are making our immune system weaker. And then the parasites are benefiting from that and they're making us have more difficulty sleeping. So it's this spiraling down of our symptoms getting worse and us feeling weaker. And that's why it's really important. Our students, they work on their sleep. They're having optimal sleep before they start treating. Having optimal sleep, we notice that the inflammation starts to go down and symptoms can start to soften. We won't get rid of all the MS or other disease until we treat the parasites, but this is really huge. Intestinal inflammation. I've shared a ton of research with you. So research shows that MS patients are 50% higher likely to have inflammatory bowel diseases like colitis and Crohn's disease. 50%, 50, that's huge. At least 20% of MS patients have been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. And that is double what we would see in the general population. We know that this is the case because we've worked with thousands of people that have MS and other chronic diseases, and we know that disease begins in the gut. We know that our microbiome is really disrupted, and then in time, the parasites, they move into our central nervous system. This inflammation in our gut, we really need to decrease it. We do that with a Live Disease-Free diet, and I do have a cheat sheet. So we do have the Live Disease-Free diet guidelines and cheat sheet, and if you'd like that, that's for free. Find Live Disease Free on Instagram and you can direct message me there. Or if you're on Facebook, you can direct message us there also, Live Disease Free, and just put diet and we'll send you the cheat sheet. So that cheat sheet really helps you to avoid foods that would cause the inflammation to be higher, would feed the parasites. And it's dramatic, the change in symptoms that people can have when they just decrease their carbs. I have one really young boy that's in my program right now, and he was a really healthy boy, played a lot of tennis, and he went from that to being in a wheelchair really shortly, really quickly. So hard on his parents, so hard on him. What is going on? They're in the hospitals, the doctors don't know. And I'm just like, it's parasites. I know it's parasites. If you're a healthy young boy and you go that dramatically, so just follow the diet. So all he did was just make some changes in his diet. He's already out of the wheelchair. Amazing. So this is what we see, just dramatic improvements when you decrease the inflammation just with diet alone. So, but there are other things that will also trigger the inflammation with respect to diet. So number one, if you have the inflammatory bowel disease or you're dealing with the irritable bowel disease, if you have any of those, then you probably don't tolerate raw vegetables. So even though they're low carb, even though we could eat them on the Live Disease-Free diet, you would avoid raw vegetables because they definitely can, like if you're dealing with a lot of inflammation and they're causing let's say loose stool, for example, or pain in your stomach, that is driving. So your gut is really irritated and it's just not able to handle the raw vegetables at this time. So avoid raw vegetables if they don't agree with you. And that would be, you can still cook them. So steaming, sauteing, stir frying, and oven roasting vegetables are fine. But just make sure that you avoid the vegetables that don't agree with you and cook them if you are dealing with some type of inflammatory bowel condition. That is going to help a lot. And the last thing I wanted to say about diet is that when we have the parasites in the gut, we have leaky gut, and then we become sensitive to foods that we should not become sensitive to. And then if we keep eating them, it's going to keep driving inflammation also. So this is where you have to really pay attention to how you feel when you eat certain foods. And if you're sensitive, and I don't mean like an anaphylactic reaction, but if you are sensitive, then just make sure that you avoid those foods and you will start to notice that the inflammation starts to go down. So for people that have, let's say, diarrhea, and they just avoid certain foods that bother them, and they also cook their vegetables, they're eating low carb, they're following the diet, the Live Disease-Free diet, they find that they have starting to have normal bowel movements, like normal stool, which is so incredibly exciting. And so we know that the parasites are triggering inflammation, but then the consequences of the parasites causing these like really pro-inflammatory conditions, and we can avoid those triggers. So avoiding foods you're sensitive to, and then also just making sure that you cook your vegetables if you know that they kind of make you feel worse. Inflamed gut equals systemic inflammation. So it's not just going to be localized in the gut. The inflammation is going to be radiating out into the rest of the body. This is going to impact our nervous system. There's this gut-brain axis of nerves between our gut and our brain, a highway of nerves. And so what's impacting the gut, the inflammation in the gut, will be impacting our central nervous system. And this can persist even if we're eating low carb. Again, if we're eating the wrong foods, low carb, what we're sensitive to, or we're not cooking them when we should. And be careful with supplements, because supplements can also drive inflammation. If you have certain parasites that would benefit from collagen, or they would benefit from high doses of the B vitamins or high doses of vitamin D, that will actually make you feel worse, and that is perpetuating inflammation. And that would be another trigger. So diet still matters. It's really important, especially when we're dealing with gut inflammation. And the Live Disease-Free diet is built on years and years of experience from working with thousands of people. So all of the little fine tweak adjustments, we just know what works and what doesn't work. And that is why people can notice such significant symptom improvements by following the diet and then making changes to these other triggers that I'm mentioning today. And so again, if you would like access to this little cheat sheet that I have of what to eat, what to avoid when you're dealing with MS or other chronic diseases, then all you do is direct message me in Facebook or in Instagram, Live Disease Free, and just say diet, and we will send you the link for that PDF, and you can print it off and you can put it in your kitchen. It's super helpful. Actually, we have healthcare professionals that are handing it out too, which is really cool. The diet and all these triggers, like dealing with the triggers, is going to be a big game changer for you. The fourth trigger is detoxification issues. So when we're dealing with a lot of parasites, then we have very often that detox pathways are not very open, especially with respect to daily bowel movements. We might be dealing with constipation. And so when we're dealing with constipation, the toxins produced by the parasites, they build up, they end up in our blood. Our liver tries to get rid of them, but unfortunately, sometimes the toxic load is too high and the liver is not able to keep up with it. So it ends up passing the liver, going into crossing the blood-brain barrier and going into the central nervous system. So really important that we make sure we're having daily bowel movements. And some of us are like, well, Pam, I'd like to, but I'm so constipated, I can't. If you are really constipated, then what's really important is just to take a supplement. So there's on our website, livediseasefree.com, Oxy powder is really helpful. For some people, they need more like a fiber. There's vitality capsules. And some people need a combination. Everybody's different, but use supplements to get the bowels moving, because then you're not going to have the toxins going right back into your body again, causing or perpetuating the flare, making your symptoms worse. We've seen this in lots of students, and this is why in the Live Disease-Free plan, I help them to troubleshoot. So sometimes they might be following the diet, their carbs are low enough, but they're just not moving forward like they should. Then we're looking at these triggers. So it is really important that we're having daily bowel movements before we start treating the parasites. And in doing so, we notice that inflammation can just even start to go down because we're having daily bowel movements. And the diet also helps, for the vast majority of people, helps with the diet will help their bowel movements too. Number 5, the 5th trigger would be environmental toxins. The 2 big ones that we find are the most problematic would be, number 1, mold in the environment. If you live in a moldy home or you work in a moldy environment, the toxins produced by mold are some of the most toxic substances in the world. They really suppress our immune system. There have been many of our students experience living in a moldy home or working in a moldy environment years before they became sick with a chronic disease like MS. So they have a history of mold exposure. And so it's really important to inspect, make sure you don't have a leaky roof, check to make sure that you don't have mold coming into your home anywhere. And if you do, you have to address it properly, because these mold toxins, they can cause a lot of symptoms similar to what we would see in multiple sclerosis. So they can really trigger immune responses. They can really trigger inflammation. They can make different neurological symptoms much worse. And then EMF RF radiation, so the wireless radiation that we have in our environment, definitely can make the parasites grow up to 600 times faster, as been documented by Dr. Klinghardt. So they're growing faster, they're producing more toxins, and they're more virulent, so that causes more symptoms because the inflammation is so much higher. So it's really important to manage the wireless radiation in our environment. That means at night, if you can, which we do, unplug your router, make sure to put your phone on airplane mode. I personally don't have any smart appliances in my home. I have dumb appliances, I call them. That way I am not having all of this radiation hitting my body all the time and bothering the parasites. One way that they bother the parasites is that it's been shown in research that parasitic worms are sinks for heavy metals. So the heavy metals that we absorb in our body from the environment, that they become concentrated in the worms. And when they're concentrated in the worms, and they're being hit by this radiation, the wireless radiation, they're like little antenna, and it makes them feel worse. They don't like it. And so it makes them more agitated, and so they become more virulent. That's how it's been described from different doctors. So that is why it's really important to decrease the wireless. One of the reasons, it's not good for us anyhow, but decrease the wireless radiation around us, so that will help to decrease inflammation, which will decrease our symptoms. So there are other toxins in our environment, but those 2 are pretty significant. They will really impact, number 1, our recovery, but they can make our symptoms worse even when we're starting to change our diet. The perfect storm. So if we're dealing with significant stress, maybe emotional, maybe it's financial, maybe it's car accident, physical, any kind of stress really is a trigger to make our symptoms worse when we're dealing with a parasitic infestation. So when we're dealing with chronic diseases. Number 2 is the sleep deprivation. If we haven't had enough sleep for a long period of time, that is going to be a trigger that makes our symptoms worse, can cause flares, and just really slows us down from improving. Number 3 is the gut inflammation. Yes, get your carbs down. It's going to make such a difference for you, but also be aware of food sensitivities, and also make sure that it's not just the food sensitivities, but if you are dealing with an inflammatory bowel condition, that you cook the vegetables that agree with you. They still should be low carb, but saute, oven roast, steam, or stir fry the vegetables that agree with you. And then the environmental toxins. So this is all part of the prep phase that our students do in getting ready to treat. So they make sure they don't have mold in the environment. And if they do, they have it remediated properly. And make sure that you do it properly, because otherwise you will be dealing with ongoing mold issues. And it's very dangerous, actually. And then the EMF RF radiation. This is helping us to get ready to treat, because it's helping us to feel better, decreasing inflammation, but it's also part of longevity. If we can manage this Wi-Fi around us and really decrease our exposure to it, then we live longer and we will have a greater quality of life. So together, all of these steps, like dealing with these triggers, these 5 significant triggers, they will really help to decrease inflammation, decrease the activity of the immune system. The immune system doesn't have to work as hard. The immune system will work more the way it's supposed to. We notice inflammation goes down. We notice that symptoms, instead of getting worse, they can actually start to soften. We still have to treat the parasites, absolutely, but this is a key step in getting ready to treat and just feeling better. So this is something that you can take what I have shared, these 5 triggers, you can make sure that they're not affecting you in your life. And I'm sure that, together with following the Live Disease-Free diet, make sure to grab the cheat sheet again. You can DM me, direct message me, diet, and you will get the diet plan, the cheat sheet. So this is truly ways that you can start to feel better. And also make sure, if you watched my last week's talk about the Live Disease-Free diet, make sure you share with me if you did start to change your diet. Let me know if you've changed your diet already and if you've already started to notice some symptom improvements. I wanted to share a couple of successes because we just had our call, but one of them was that little boy who's in a hospital, who was in a wheelchair, and he's out of the wheelchair, starting to walk, just changing his diet. His dad is in the hospital with him. His mom is going there sometimes too. It's really hard on them. They're going back and forth between the hospital, but just by changing his diet, by giving him whole, nutritious foods, but lowering the carbs significantly, he's doing so much better that the doctors are shocked. They're like, what is going on? He was so sick and he's doing so much better. And then just over the last couple of weeks, we've noticed one lady, her drop foot, just with the diet. So that's decreased inflammation. Her drop foot is no longer an issue. And people sleeping and having normal bowel movements and finding they have more strength in their legs. It just goes on and on. So it's really, and then that together with treating, I just wanted to share another one of an amazing wellness champion who's in the plan right now. She literally was in a wheelchair and she could not sit up straight or stand straight. She was like hunched over to the side, over to one side. And just on her second treatment cycle, she is standing. Her husband keeps sending me videos. She's able to stand. She is able to take steps. She was washing dishes. She was doing like exercises where she's pushing herself against the counter, pulling and pushing herself. Absolutely miraculous. And she's standing up straight. And she had such terrible bowel incontinence when she started. And her bowels are way better. She's having somewhat normal bowel movements for the first time in a long time. So, I think he was saying that she hasn't been able to do dishes for a couple of years. There was something that she hasn't been able to do for a couple of years, and she's starting to do that. Amazing. She's only on her second treatment cycle, and she was that disabled. So we are mastering the strategy to recover from parasitic infestations. The 5 triggers that I shared with you today are very significant. They will prevent us from moving forward. They will make our symptoms worse. And that's why it's really important to know about them, to deal with them, and change your diet. And then when you start going, oh my gosh, Pam, this works, this is so amazing, then make sure to watch my masterclass training, because on the training, I share all the steps we take to recover. I also share a lot of research about what's making you sick. And I also share amazing case studies of these wellness champions. And then when you watch that, and if you're at that place where you're like, Pam, this is my answer, I know in my heart that this is what I'm dealing with, then what you would do is just fill out the form and submit the form, and then you can book a time to chat with me to make sure it's a good fit for you, and I would be honored to support you. And I'm so excited for you. Every week it is like brings tears to my eyes, happy tears in our plan, in the successes that the students, the updates that they're giving me every week. What I wanted to also say is that if you appreciate what I'm sharing, and if you want this to get out to the world, if you want to bring hope to other people, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps this to get out to others. And otherwise, have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next week. Take care and bye-bye for now.